I know you've been talking about this on your blog at Esquire, is this, the sort of the grift that is the right wing. And, we saw an example of it this week with who was it? No, it was Newt Gingrich sending out his emails. We saw this with your buddy Scott Brown, also sending out, selling off their email list.
Well, I mean, Sam, credit where credit's due. This is Sarah Palin. She has reinvented the ability of somebody to be a political figure and raise money without ever doing a political job or running for anything.
Yeah,
she has pointed the way.
Absolutely. And I think, and what's interesting too, though, is that we also saw the implications of this, because a guy like Tom Perkins will be sitting at a dinner table and there'll be some Republican, sort of consultants sitting around the table. Tom Perkins will say this idea, whatever it is that comes out of his mouth, and that consultant will rush up to him and go, "You're absolutely right. If we were just talking about, if Mitt Romney was talking about Reverend Wright, he would win this election in 5 minutes. I happen to be a media broker, and we can actually do commercials on this. I, of course, get 10 to 15% off the top, and I've got my own production company." But that seems to be what's driving Republican conservative politics across the board now.
It's an interesting point. It's one it was one that I was making in the blog during the 2012 campaign, where you had all these absolutely unwinnable campaigns being financed by one or two people. You had Foster Freeze, and you had Sheldon Adelson floating Gingrich, and Freeze was floating Santorum, and neither one of those guys was going to be the nominee, let alone be the president. But they were kept alive because they had one guy willing to write checks. And when Joe Biden said yesterday that there is no Republican Party, that's what he's talking about. There is no Republican Party anymore as a party. There's a kind of galaxy of orbiting power bases, and the Republican Party is the least of them. There are independent millionaires. There are political action committees. There are cults of personality, and I mean there isn't a more powerless marionette in American politics than Reince Priebus.
Yeah, well, I sort of look at it as like Republicanism is now the industry, and there's a series of different companies in there all vying to make more money in the context of that big industry, which is the right wing, essentially.
Right, and the Republican Party is the institutional Republican Party is the least of these.
It's
because there's no center of power in the party who can rein the other centers of power in.
Yeah, I mean it raises.
I mean, is Mitch McConnell going to tell the Koch brothers that what they're doing is hurting the party?
Right.
Even if he does, they're not going to listen to him.
Right, and he knows that's where his at least part of his bread is going to get buttered. And we saw this this week with the debt ceiling fight that didn't really happen, and that weird story that came out of BuzzFeed with these secret emails. You linked to that. I mean, just tell us a little bit about that, because
apparently when they voted the clean debt ceiling through the House, somebody with access to the private email server. I guess the congressmen have a private email server within the Congress. I didn't know this at the time. Apparently somebody with access to that, which means either a member of Congress or a very high-level staffer, sent around this kind of quasi-stalkerish email saying, "We're watching you. This vote will come back to haunt you." And all I could think of was all those horror stories with the babysitter, where somebody finally says, like, "He's in the house upstairs." I mean, somebody had access to a very secure server to make these threats, which means that some Republican congressman maybe feels empowered enough independently to threaten the other members on their own email.
I have a theory that,
okay.
And here's my theory, and in this story I guess just came out too, that Ted Cruz was the guy who killed immigration reform in the House.
Right.
I think it's Ted Cruz. I think
Do you really?
I think no, I don't know. I mean, I think he could be going to like an internet cafe and just
in a trench coat and a balaclava. Who's the real scary guy at the back table? I don't know. Just leave him there for about 10 minutes.
He's
okay.
But he looks just like Joe McCarthy.
Don't make him mad.